All right, so I didn't want to make this video, but here we go. This is getting very scary. You guys know where I stand in terms of the implementation of draconian, centralized power structure, uber government measures in order to mitigate global crises. I'm not a fan, okay? I've made that abundantly clear throughout the pandemic. Everybody knows where I stand by now with respect to that. I'm not making any prescriptions in this video, but I am warning you that the current weather anomalies that we are experiencing, like what we've experienced here for the last month, is beyond the realm of exceptional. It is beyond the realm of historic. This is a cataclysmic disequilibrium that we are currently experiencing. The jet stream has completely broken down. It is +6 degrees here in central Saskatchewan. There is absolutely no snow, as you can see behind me. This is completely unprecedented, and unprecedented is not a word that does this justice anymore. What we are seeing is going to have dire implications for agriculture, for migration, for energy, and this shift that we're about to experience, and a lot of people are not ready for. And again, I'm not making any prescriptions in this video. I am trying to make this as apolitical of an appeal as possible, as a gun-toting prepper who also, is very pro-social and progressive in many ways. What I'm trying to do is try to bring some balance to this conversation, because what we are experiencing right now is not normal. It is normal to have a +5, +6 day every other, maybe week or month up here in wintertime. Not like this, not so persistent and enduring. It is typical, the weather that we should be experiencing is in the -20 to -30 degrees Celsius range, dipping into the -45, -50 range with respect to the wind chill factor. That is what is typical. And then maybe you pepper throughout some warmer days, some single-digit days, but absolutely nothing that comes close to what we've been experiencing in the last few years, especially this year. It is completely off the charts. And that is concerning because this is going to have some very dire consequences for agriculture, for water, for where we as human beings have set up shop. And again, I must emphasize that I am by no means encouraging or endorsing any sort of centralized government buffoonery that seeks to tackle this issue by increasing our taxes or corralling us all into 15-minute cities or any nonsense like that. Okay, I understand the dystopian future that we all fear as self-reliant, individualistically minded people is being confined to a certain cordoned off region of a urban metropolis, which is in a high-rise building with our virtual reality headsets, and we own nothing and we're all supposed to be happy about it. That's probably going to work for 90% of the population. It's not going to work for preppers and survivalists. However, we need to at some point acknowledge the obvious elephant in the room, that this can be an apolitical issue. Unfortunately, with the left, they always come with some sort of prescription on what you have to do. You have to start, lowering your carbon footprint. And of course, we're always being told this by people who have immense carbon footprints, right? Hypocrites. And on the right, any attempt at even acknowledging the fact that something is happening is viewed as some sort of communist ploy to take away our rights and freedoms. I'm telling you that the obvious rational solution or conclusion is in the middle somewhere. Yes, this disequilibrium that has been caused by excessive human energy consumption over the past 100 years, disproportionate to any other time throughout human history, is having some noticeable effect. I mean, this was obvious in the 30s when farming methods led to the Dust Bowl or contributed greatly to the Dust Bowl conditions. We know that we can have that level of effect. We know that there are unintended consequences to the utilization of technology in order to create sustainable habitats in places where there typically hasn't been throughout history. Okay, so in Canada here, we typically require more energy use because it's colder. So we need more energy to keep our homes warm. And by no means am I saying that we need to have a smart grid that regulates how much energy we use. I'm not making any prescriptions. In fact, I'm quite cynical about our ability to do anything about it. I believe that there's going to be an economic contraction, there's going to be a material contraction, energy is going to become more scarce, and the consequences of this disequilibrium are going to affect everybody in terms of inflation, in terms of increased wars for more limited resources, refugee crises, civil unrest, civil war perhaps, economic contraction, the whole 9 yards. It's all going to affect everybody, and there's not much we can do about it. The best thing you can do is get ahead of the curve by what a friend of mine calls the great simplification. Nate Hagens is a natural resource expert that I've had on the channel before. He too tries to take a more apolitical stance with this issue and just present people with the data with respect to natural resource scarcity, as well as the impact that we are having on our habitat. Our habitat is where we live, the ecosystems that we've become dependent on. You might not think you're dependent on an ecosystem and that meat that you're eating just came from a lab. Not yet, probably will happen soon, unfortunately, but it definitely requires a very balanced ecology in order to sustain human life, one that has been severely disrupted. Now, what I'm saying is that this situation is going to get monumentally worse. These abnormal conditions that we are experiencing, as great as it might be, I like warm weather, don't get me wrong, but I'm also aware that there's going to be negative consequences to all of this, unfortunately. And that means that we need to get prepared for it. We need to get ahead of it. And as I'm a firm believer that the best things in life are free, for me, the materialistic contraction is not really that relevant anyways. I mean, I don't care if I necessarily can't have 3 cars and I might only be able to have 1 or 2. You know, I don't really necessarily care if I can't have a new pair of shoes every 10 years because they're prohibitively expensive, or just because, you know, there's a sanctions war, there's a trade war, and the cost of labor goes through the roof because we go to war with China or whatever the case might be. I don't care about materialistic shit. I don't care necessarily that I might not be able to have as much variety. I do, of course, care if the government is trying to restrict my freedoms for my own well-being, because we all know how incompetent they are in managing any crisis. Centralization never works. It only works in the interest of the elites, who we all know are never going to give up their rights and freedoms. So this is just an opportunity. I had to seize the day because this is going to be one of the warmest days this week. However, it is supposed to be warm all the way up until January, which is completely insane. This is, I'm in disbelief at the persistence of these abnormal weather patterns and the reluctance of some people to acknowledge that shit's changing. Now, again, you can acknowledge that things are changing and not be for any sort of centralized prescription of law and order, excessive rule of law, in order to mitigate these crises that are unfolding. But you still should probably do the wise thing and understand that things are changing. It's going to get a lot worse. And as much as I enjoy this warm weather, I know there's going to be dire agricultural consequences. For example, right now, it is so incredibly dry. There is zero precipitation. There is zero snow on the ground, aside a light smattering of frost that we get every night that usually melts away by midday. And that is going to have agricultural consequences for all of us. And I'm not saying that the drought's not going to pass. It will pass, but there'll be flooding. And we're living in the age of extremes, going from one extreme to the next. So all I can say is keep on prepping. Try to get a plan in place to get yourself in a more self-reliant rural environment while you still can. Okay, this is possibly entering the final years in which you are going to have an opportunity in order to do that. There's a reason why the world's billionaires are buying land as fast as they can, because they understand full well that that is going to be the freehold. That is going to be the only place to really eke out a free existence where you and your family can act on their own volition in terms of determining the course of your own life's events without having the government breathe down your neck every step of the way. You can be pro-environment. You can be acknowledging of the fact that we're in an obvious climate crisis without you know, having to follow the Greta Thunbergs of the world, and without having to follow any sort of green World Economic Forum agenda. I'm here to say it's possible, okay, to be both of these things. And that's pretty much it. That's all I got to say today, guys, is keep on prepping, because if it's not war, if it's not conflict, if it's not contagion, it's most definitely climate, it's cyber, it's commerce, it's everything. We got to prepare for it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Canadian Prepper out.